University of Oregon and also University of Colorado in Boulder, which is how I ended up here in Boulder. uh, I've lived here for the past 10 years or so, and I play a lot of orchestra, chamber music out here. I teach a lot of, I have a studio of students that I teach, and that's the short version, I guess.
Fine. Now, Joey, this is, I forget, the 13th or 14th Trinity Alps Chamber Music Festival digital concert. And it is also the sixth concert in which we have featured one of Johann Sebastian Bach's cello suites. And so today, this kind of brings us to the culmination of this little project. Today, Joey will be playing the sixth and final suite by Johann Sebastian Bach. And so, thank you for preparing this. I know that this is an enormous work and tremendously challenging. But I also know that Bach's cello music is kind of it's the meat and potatoes of cello repertoire. It's something that everyone at some point gets comfortable with, or at least dedicates some time to. Most of our audience has heard one or more of the other cello suites. So we're rather familiar with the format. These cello suites are several movements, usually six movements. They begin with a prelude, which is a little more improvisatory, and then as they progress, they go through a series of dances, the Allemande, the German elegant dance, the Courante, the slightly faster, more vivacious French dance, the Sarabande, the more eloquent and often slower Spanish dance. In this one, I think there are two gavottes, right, which is another kind of more upbeat two-beat dance, and then they generally end with a jig, the sort of English or Scottish or Irish inspired fast dance at the end. But Joey, you and I were talking about how this sixth suite is a little bit unique in that it is one of the most extroverted of all of the suites, and that it has a feeling of culmination, just in the way that everything comes together in this final suite. Do you mind telling us a little bit about what we can expect from this piece, especially compared to the rest of the music of Bach that we've already heard?
Oh yeah, sure. So this I think that the word culmination really does describe this piece. I think it's kind of a it's of all of the suites, I would say it's sort of, in a way, it's on kind of the grandest scale. It's sort of the I want to say least economical, but not in a bad way. In a way that, especially the first and second suites are really, really sort of what's the word for something that's really poetic without saying too much. This suite
Eloquent?
sort of goes, yeah, yeah, sure, yeah. This suite sort of goes over the top, almost in the other direction. It almost kind of, in my mind, is more related to some of the violin pieces where there's a lot of chords, a lot of multiple voices happening at once. That I'm actually playing all of the notes. It's just on a very grand scale.
That's great.
Even just the
And
opening.
oh, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh,
But
it's okay. I was gonna.
when you described that, I was just thinking about the very beginning of the piece and how the first thing the cello does really announces this new character. Do you mind just giving
Oh,
us a little demonstration?
sure. And I always think of this opening not as really cello music, but it's almost more like I always think of like trumpets and drums. It's sort of like a herald, like a procession almost. It's and so it's very rhythmic, very sort of laudatory. And it sort of goes from there. But
Oh, that's great, wonderful. The other thing that I remember discussing with you when we were getting ready is that how when Bach originally wrote this, he had a slightly different model of cello in mind. Specifically, he wrote this for a cello that had five strings, so it had an additional string on the high end. Nowadays, it's extremely rare to find one of these. So, what does that mean for you playing a normal four-string cello, playing a piece that was written with all of these extra high notes for the high string?
well, I I would say that because this piece was written for a cello that actually has one higher string, an E string. Bach writes for a much wider range than in the other cello suites. Obviously, my low notes are the same low notes, but the high notes go quite a bit higher. So I have to, instead of having that high string where I can play some of these notes down here in first position, I have to go way up here to play them, to replace the fact that I don't have the string. And the piece really takes advantage of that and uses this incredible range and scope to really broaden the entire expressive palette of the piece, I think. In fact, there's one moment in the first movement that's one of my favorites, where it's sort of like he's testing the range and just how high you can go, almost like climbing up to heaven or something. Keeps going higher and higher. It's almost daring to go higher and higher. And then just in a few seconds after that, I get all the way down to this note. So you sort of get this incredibly broad range.
That's great. Thank you so much. I love having ideas like this that are, it's a physical challenge for you and for people like you and I, the performers. But for the audience, it really translates into a kind of a musical expression. So I love little things like that bring it together. Again, this piece is in 6 movements, right? So I think it's nearly a half hour of music. So I think with this introduction, I think we're ready to dive in. Thank you so much for that little discussion, and thank you for being here to perform for us.
Great, thank you for having me. Let's do it.
Bravo.
It was wonderful.
Pretty amazing.
Wonderful. Amazing. Yeah, you heard it, Joey. Wonderful job. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thanks for having me.
Yeah, what an
wonderful.
incredible piece. I mean, I understood the feeling of culmination, especially having listened to all the other suites, you know. It seemed like of the 6 suites, you know, a lot of them seem to have one affect to them. You know, there was that dark C minor suite that we heard a couple weeks ago. There was the kind of elegance of the third suite, the C major, which was all about scales going down and building up. And this one seemed to be, if anything, I would characterize it as just kind of an outpouring of joy, especially the beginning and especially the end. I really got that.
With beautiful moments of introspection too. You know, really profound slow movements. I mean, so I was watching. I wanted to say one more thing. I was watching. There's a movie on YouTube that I would recommend. It's John Elliott Gardner. It's Bach: A Passionate Life. It's a documentary on Bach. If you're interested in the life of Bach, it's a great place to start. And it was just sort of thinking about how Bach had so much tragedy in his life. He had 10 kids. 10 of his 20 kids died before adulthood. His parents died when he was 9, but you know, his music, because of this, there's such a deep. I mean, it's almost as if he's comforting himself, and there's just such a deep sense of comfort in a lot of his music. And the slow moves of this suite, I think, is one place where it just really is like, in a hard time, you know, it's just really like heartwarming music from someone who knew how to get through a situation in life, I guess.
Yeah. Thank you so much for saying that. I mean, you know, that's such an interesting point. I think usually when we talk about music, you know, classical music, you know, we generally talk about composers and their life and what they went through, but we generally only do that to composers, you know, of the so-called Romantic era, when it was kind of fashionable for the artistic um, persona to be examined. So we think of Beethoven and his deafness, and Chopin and his tuberculosis, and Liszt and his womenizing and his, his whole dramatic thing. But I think it's interesting to remember that, you know, that even someone like Bach, we think we're sort of overwhelmed by his music at times, that we don't think about Bach the person. So really, thank you for that. That was just really wonderful.
Yeah, I think I think there's a reason everybody's playing Bach now, besides just the fact that you can do it on your own. You know, that it's just it gives such solace. You know.
Well, Joey, thank you again, and I hope you'll stick around. Usually at the end of our programs, we do a kind of a live Q&A with our audience where people can actually chat with you. For now, I want to go on to the rest of the program. By the way, Joey, we do have a couple of nice comments in the chat from our friend Daniel Roslin up in Oregon. He says, wonderful playing, Joey. He says, that work is a Mount Everest for cellos, and you scaled it. That's great. Another mountaineering little reference for our concert today. And then we also had a comment from Joanne Mirsky, who said, thank you so much, Joseph. You were amazing. From Joanne and her
Thanks,
family,
Joanne.
Jaden and Abby. All right, I'd like to remind our audience you can chat a little bit with Joey at the end of the program. But for now, I would like to move on and introduce you all. Well, first, I'd like to move on and just remind a few people of just the basics of how this festival runs our programs. 2011 was when this festival began. That was our first season. So we had big plans for this year, for 2020. It is our 10th season as a music organization presenting chamber music across the West Coast, but we more broadly across the United States. We've even done a couple tours in Switzerland, if you can believe it. But since the beginning, since our first program 10 seasons ago, our programs have been offered as a kind of a pay what you can format. That is to say, we don't set ticket prices. We're sort of working against the assumption that a lot of people have that classical music is somehow a pretentious elitist thing where you need to be so educated and you need a nice tuxedo and you need expensive tickets. We really want chamber music and classical music to be acceptable to all people. And so with that in mind, we have done concerts focusing on rural communities around California, and we've opened our concerts up on a pay what you can basis. So I hope that you support this mission and that you believe that we're on the right track. It's worked for 10 years, so I just feel so grateful that it has worked. One reason it's worked so well is because our audience really supports these kind of things. So I just ask you all to consider what this means to you, programs like this, supporting musicians like who we're hearing today. And I would ask you to make a contribution, any amount you choose. Anything is going to help us keep running these programs. At the moment, we're actually running the end of the year sort of contribution fund. And so it's my job as the director to not only point out that we have done 14 of these digital concerts to keep all of our musicians performing and working, but we're also running a piano donation program. We were recently donated a Steinway M piano. It was made in 1920, so it just turned 100 years old. And because of that, it needs a couple new components, a new hip here, a new knee here, and it's going to be ready to go and be a performance piano. So that's another reason why we are raising money at the end of the year here. And then finally, we are starting a grant program ourselves. We are trying to offer grants to musicians and professionals who are in the middle of transitioning their careers onto teaching music and performing online. As many of you know, there's quite a learning curve, not just in learning the technology, but sort of upgrading the necessary components. So many musicians who are struggling and out of work need a few extra bits of help to get back to performing. So this will help them do things like purchase microphones for teaching and recording, and purchase software or training to help them perform online. That is another way that we're raising money. If you'd like to know more, the easiest way to do that is to go to the Trinity Alps Chamber Music Festival website. There is a donation page. If you'd like to make a charitable contribution, it should go through one of our 501c3s. That's take a moment to just check that out. And finally, if you haven't yet, you should join our email list. It's also easy to do on the website. And I think that's all I need to say. My job as the director is to say those things. So with that, I'd like to move on and introduce you to my friends Britton Day and Mariko Wyrick. They are here in San Francisco, actually not too far from me, in the Richmond neighborhood of San Francisco. Hello, Britt and Mariko. I am delighted to have you here. We're going to have a real chamber music experience. Is that right?
No, I'm actually just gonna play alone. No, of course we are. Of course we are. This is, yeah, we're delighted to be here. It's my great pleasure to present to you all Poulenc's Cello Sonata.
Oh, I can't wait for it. Before we go on, can I just ask you, if you wouldn't mind, for those of our audience who have not yet met you, would you do like Joey did and give your favorite 3-sentence sort of biographical introduction, just so we get a little sense of your adventures in music so far?
Yeah, I play the piano. You can see it right there. That's mine. Born and raised here in the Bay Area. Went to college, studied music, and now I'm here making a living. I've done a lot of chamber work in the Bay Area. I've worked with the ballet, preparing Nutcracker, Sleeping Beauty, a bunch of other things like that. And yeah, right now we're all just here at our home, at our homes practicing. So this is an incredible opportunity to continue to share our music.
Thank you. And for those
You
of
want
you
to
in the
hear about
audience, I met Britt. We both work at the San Francisco Conservatory of Music, where we both also did graduate studies. And so he and I have collaborated before on four-hand piano programs and all kinds of stuff. And I'm glad to have you here. Would you mind introducing your colleague Mariko?
Yeah, here she is. Mariko is an absolutely fantastic cellist.
Or I
I,
guess
I
she can
remember
introduce
being.
herself. I don't know why I needed to
Ah,
have
she
you do
didn't
it.
want to do it. You want to talk?
Sure.
You said introduce her, so.
I know. I'm sorry.
Hello, I'm Mariko. I went to school in New York. I recently moved back due to current events.
Oh man, like your jaw.
I play in the American Ballet Theater Orchestra in New York, and I recently got a job in the San Francisco Ballet Orchestra. So I'm back and I'm living here, and it's really great to be able to play chamber music with Britt.
Did you guys get all that?
Yeah, thank you for
No.
being here. If anyone missed, Mariko has spent the last several years in New York, where she was playing with the American Ballet Orchestra and studying. She recently came back to San Francisco, among other things, because she now has a position with the San Francisco Ballet Orchestra. So thank you again for being here, Mariko. And I understand the two of you are playing a cello sonata by the 20th century French composer Francis Poulenc. And I am particularly excited about this. You know, I love Poulenc's music. He's one of those 20th century composers who managed to write modern music. You know, this is the heyday of modern music, the 30s, 40s, 50s. But Poulenc managed to do it by always being tuneful. He had beautiful melodies. He always had a lot of character, and I think most of all, his music is very fun. It always has this kind of rhythmic energy. It has this kind of hilarity of interaction between the characters. So, I mean, that's my take on Poulenc in general. I hope you agree with at least most of that. How would you describe this sonata and what we're about to hear?
I agree with everything you said, and even to take it a step further, if you think about a Beethoven sonata or anything like that, or Brahms, you'll have maybe the cellist will play a phrase, and then the pianist will answer with another phrase. And with Poulenc, he'll have us each be playing a fragment. So you'll play the first half of one phrase, and the other person will jump in and finish that sentence. So he kind of like really amps that up. And I think going off of what you were saying about fun and hilarious, I think Poulenc uniquely is able to kind of walk this tightrope line where on one side you have like irony, humor, you know, like a detached like absurdity. And then right on the other side is just utmost sincerity and beauty. And he'll flip between one of those on a dime. Like he'll go into something that almost becomes grotesque, and then suddenly it'll open into like the most sublime melody you've ever heard. And
That's
that is
great. Oh my
that's
gosh.
absolutely the case with this piece. Another thing I'd like to add, because I think you'll appreciate this, I hope other people do. He has just the most rich and exquisite harmonies, and the harmonic motion is so dense. What I mean by that is he'll move from like 4 keys in one progression and end in a completely different place. And it's so tempting to stop and smell every flower. And Poulenc knew that when he wrote it. And there are so many cases in this piece where at the beginning of a really beautiful section, he'll write, always without slowing down.
As though he were warning you.
Because he knows that you're going to want to take time at the end of like every single phrase. And I do. And even when we're practicing it, we'll notice, okay, what are we doing here? Oh, we're slowing down all the time because it's so beautiful. So yeah, it's a really fun piece. 4 movements. Yeah, immediately you'll hear the beginning, just this raucous, percussive opening, and then again it'll immediately dissolve into this flowing melody, and you'll hear that all the time. The second movement is probably one of his more famous works, I think. It's a pretty popular, like one of those slow movements that is just incredibly satisfying to play. And I think that is the introverted core in this otherwise incredibly extroverted piece. After that, we'll move into a ballabile, which I believe is a lively and funny dance. And then, man, what's the last movement even called? This, whatever.
Finale.
The finale, until we move into the finale. That makes sense. That opens and closes with these just huge pillars of sound in both the cello and the piano that moves into this strange sort of dance. And in it, you'll hear a lot of influences throughout the whole piece, but this one especially of Prokofiev and maybe even Shostakovich.
Wonderful. Thank you for that introduction.
How's that sound?
We got a little bit of the microcosm, the detail about how he moves through phrases and how he uses humor and sort of conversation between the instruments. And then we also got a bit of the macrocosm, the sort of large scale picture. Just so our audience knows, I will put the movements into the chat so that we can follow along with the 4 movements of this sonata. And I wish you two a wonderful performance. Just to remind everyone, you'll have a chance to ask questions of Britt and of Mariko. And of Joey, after the performance, we'll have a little social hour. Thanks, you guys. I'm looking forward to this so much.
So are we. Let's do it.
Bravo. Wow.
Thank you so much. Thank you for
Wow.
listening.
Wow, that was amazing. That had so much in it. I mean,
There's a lot. It's a lot.
It's hard to
It is a lot.
start. Wow, how wonderful! I mean, for the first fall, I remember, when Joey was demonstrating some of the Bach, moving up the fingerboard to get those high notes. He gave us a window into that kind of acrobatic cello technique. I think Poulenc took a pretty heavy dose of that. It seemed like you were always flying up and up and down the cello.
Oh yeah, we didn't mention that Poulenc is a pianist composer. So despite all the stuff I have to do, it feels really good. Actually, a lot of the way it lies is just really natural, and I don't think it's the same.
No, it's not natural at all.
So it's an entirely different set of challenges for both of us. But yeah, it's he puts everybody to work there. So.
Yeah, congratulations to both of you. That was a really wonderful performance. Now let's see. I'd like to open it up to our audience. Inevitably, we get to the end of these programs, and you've heard me talk about the music, and you've heard the musicians talk about everything like that. But inevitably, there's a few things that you're curious about that perhaps we left off. So I'd like to invite you. If you'd like, you can ask a question of one of the performers today, or you can type something into the chat if you don't want to unmute yourself and join the discussion. There are lots of ways to make this collaborative. Since we're in the same room, kind of in the same Zoom room here. Let's see, my friends Kathy and Randall, do you have something to share?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question of Mariko and Britt. I mean, that was just stunning. And do you have any recordings out on YouTube that we might listen to? I mean, that was a remarkable performance from both of you, and I'd love to hear more.
Thank you. No, we do take requests though. We will Zoom people's houses. No, we've known each other. We've known each other since I remember very clearly being like blown away by Mariko at like age 12 or 13. But we kind of just started doing this like a month ago, I think, just because we're both here in the Bay Area with so much time. And I think everyone's kind of, at least all musicians have kind of been isolated doing their own thing. And we were both so thirsty to make music together that this kind of just started. And we've been so fortunate that Ian has hosted us twice now. So so far this is like, aside from a couple concerts several years ago, this is pretty much the totality of our collaborative experience right here.
Wow, bravo.
I don't know, stay tuned, I guess.
Yeah. So sorry, Randall. On that note, we have another comment from Prudy Noon in the chat. She says, "You collaborate so exquisitely together. Thank you." So whatever you've done in the past month, it's really worked well. I have to say. If any of our audience is curious about Poulenc, though, like Randall, if you did want something else to listen to, his chamber music is just really wonderful. So, aside from finding perhaps, just listening to this piece again, I would particularly recommend that you check out, he has a violin sonata, a piece for violin and piano that's really wonderful. He has a clarinet sonata for clarinet and piano. And maybe my favorite of all is he wrote a sextet for 5 wind instruments and piano. And that is it's like a circus show. It's just really amazing. It would be harder to program on one of these because, after all, wind players can't really play very well with a mask on their face. But that I just offer that as some sort of homework, some additional listening, if anyone wants to explore more of Poulenc's music. We had a comment from Cherie Gans up in Reading. Cherie says, Poulenc here sounded like Jean Française, the composer Française, in so many parts. I don't know if they were friends, but I suspect they were. I mean, they came from the same era of French music. And again, if anyone wants further listening, you can look up the music of Jean Française. We have a question from Walton. Walton Friedman says, "Do you think Bach would have found Poulenc's music incomprehensible?" I love questions like this because they pose a kind of a riddle that, I mean, who knows what the answer really could be. But they present these questions of sort of time travel. I mean, I would love to be a fly on the wall and watch Bach in action or Poulenc in action. And the idea of the two of them in the same room together, that just boggles my mind. I see our
Well,
friend Peter Taines is on. Hi, Peter.
Hi. So, I mean, I think that's the first time I've heard a Poulenc piece like this, and it's pretty darned amazing. And everything he said in the introduction was, it just came through so strongly. It sounded so technically challenging for both instruments. I just can't believe it. The timing and um, the different chords I could see on the piano, because I do, amateur piano, and it just looked very difficult. So,
Yeah,
I mean, I was just blown away by it.
yeah, that's well said. Every now and then I pick up the score to that piece and sort of follow along in the music, and it's just it's constantly like, oh my gosh, how do you do that? There's acrobatics involved. There's big chords that stretch the hand.
Lots of flats. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all of that. We have an
Yeah,
interesting question in the in the chat from Daniel Kalikov. He says, "How many microphones are you using, and where are they positioned in proximity?" That's a very interesting, technical question, because as most of our audience knows, we've all been through this enormous learning curve, this technological learning curve over the course of this pandemic, as we sort of grapple with the new ways of communicating. Do you mind, Britt, do you mind answering Daniel's question about what kind of microphone you're using and how your setup is?
It's just a secret of the trade, my friend. No, of course we have one microphone. It's pretty nice. I stole it from my dad, so that's pretty cool. And it's located literally like 18 inches below where this computer setup is in the corner of the room.
Okay. So it's about 6 feet from the piano and from the cello, sort of triangulated?
Yeah, I would say we're about equidistant. Maybe she's a little bit closer, which I think is a very good thing. And yeah, we're all learning this as we go along, much like Ian said. So there was not an insane amount of thought put into this, except for finding the best place in the room that we could capture the sound and also kind of frame both of us in the shot. And I don't know, I hope it sounded okay.
It sounded great. Also to answer Daniel's question, we've found that producing these programs, it's like, usually you can use the existing camera in a laptop, like the one I'm using, and I think, Britt, you're using the camera in the laptop. It's not the best quality, but as musicians, our priority is to increase the quality of the audio first, and then maybe get the video quality better. So, when it comes to especially musicians who are facing, a loss of their normal careers, and they're sort of grappling with new financial challenges, the first priority is generally to get an external microphone that you can plug into your computer. And then there are a handful of settings, both on Zoom and on the microphone and in the software of your computer, that you can make the quality sort of improve. And so, when it comes to dealing with online teaching and online performing, there are kind of priorities. It's like, get your internet good, get an updated computer if your computer is old so that it's faster, and then get an external microphone of some sort. Generally, I'd say, the cheaper models are around $150 or $200, and it goes up from there. It goes up so high from there, depending on how much you want to get into it. So I'm glad you asked that, because that's one reason why the music festival is now trying to offer grants to musicians so that they can sort of invest in their own careers. Because, the pandemic is not going to be over soon. And even when it is, even when things are improving, it'll be a long time before we resume sort of business as usual in terms of like large scale concerts, which is what we're used to doing for our careers. So I think and even when it does come back, it is really useful to have these skills, to have skills about how to record and how to broadcast. So we really think that helping musicians adapt right now is an important thing. So again, I'll just resume my little pitch for making a contribution to the festival, because we're about to open this program so that musicians can apply to grants. So Britt, hopefully if you apply, you won't have to steal your dad's microphone next time.
Oh, he's not getting it back. He's not getting it back. No.
Oh, come on. All right. Well, maybe I'll make your dad apply. Let's see. Does anyone else in the room have questions for our friends, for Joey or for Britt and Mariko? Jake asks, are grants funded from the charitable donation site? Yes, they are. I'm putting together an application form, so musicians will get a separate form. If anyone wants to support them, though, a charitable contribution to the festival is the way to do it. And that is, I'm going to put it into the chat, trinityalpscmf.org/donate. There. Now I've done my job for the day. Let's see. Any other friends? Any other friends in the room would like to? Let's see. I'm looking at the gallery view. If you like, you can raise your hand and unmute yourself. Offer an extra bravo to our performers or ask questions. I'm so glad to see so many friends on here. I think earlier we had about 60 people. Now we're down to about 40 because we've gone about 90 minutes now. So thank you all. Is that Rachel? Do you have something you want to share? Oh, I see. It's a bravo. She was raising both hands and then clapping them together. I see. Well, I think that's fine. I mean, I feel so privileged to have such wonderful friends like my colleagues who've performed today. And I just feel so grateful that we have so many music-loving supporters on this program today. If you'd like to join us for our next concert, it is in 2 weeks' time. It is on Sunday, December 20th, again at 11 in the morning. And we will be featuring a performance of several different performers. It's actually in flux at the moment because our original plan of having singers from Frankfurt, Germany, they just contacted me and said that they want to postpone because they're visiting family in the United States at the moment. So we're postponing that program, but we're going to put together a wonderful program. It'll feature some winter's night music for the solstice, which is coming, some nocturnes, some dreamscapes, and other night music. And it may even have some holiday music if you're into that sort of thing. I don't know. Maybe we can convince Britt to play some Nutcracker Suite. In any case, that'll be in 2 weeks' time. I hope you'll join us. I would like to invite everyone now to unmute yourself at the end of the program and give our performers one last round of applause. Please join me.
Bravo, bravo, bravo.
Okay, bye-bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay well.
Thank you.